So basically, this is a complete agenda of this particular program. So fine. So before getting into this master data governance, right? So what is basically when it comes to the master data in general in any SAP or outside of SAP? So we basically deal with two type of data. So one we can say like master data. Okay. So master data. The other one basically we talk about mostly kind of transactional data. Transactional data. Okay. So can someone give me the examples for master data and transactional data?
Bank account data is the master data, and the transaction credit and debit is the transactional data.
Yes, good. Any other examples? We deal with in day in day out, right? So lots of master data, transactional data. Okay, fine. So let's say you take materials. So when you're working on in any SAP projects, right? So we deal with the materials, nothing but products. Okay, we create the materials and we use these materials in different processes, right? Similarly, we also create customers in SAP. Okay, we also create something called suppliers or business partners. Okay, or else let's say cost centers, profit center, cost elements. Okay, or company code. So all these are examples for master data for us. Okay, so now when I say master data, right? So what is these we are saying that these are examples for master data. So how do we differentiate between master data versus, let's take example for the transactional data, your sales orders, purchase orders, okay, or else your invoice posting documents. So all these are examples for your transactional data. So now how we are differentiating, this is master data and this is transactional data. Can someone put some light on that? How do we differentiate?
Master data won't change on
Yes,
daily basis. Transactional data will be on top of master data.
exactly. So that's what, yeah. So master data means you create the data once, set up the data once in the system, and you use this data for longer duration, right? So it's not like you create and delete it. Okay. So master data, you create it and then the changes to your master data happens very rarely. Okay. But you can keep on extending the master data to other views or other company codes or purchasing organizations. But the master data always we create and we use it for the longer duration. You take examples of your materials, customers, suppliers, partners, all these things, we use it for a longer duration. Okay. So whereas transactional data, the lifespan of your transactional data is short. When I say short, so let's say you create sales order, right? And when you're creating the sales order, you use this master data, like what is this particular, to whom you are selling this product, what are the product that you are selling. So all that stuff you maintain in your sales order and you create the sales order. And the lifespan of that particular sales order will be until the desired activity, like delivering the goods and closing that, posting that invoice and everything. Till once the payment is done, we close that sales order. So that span of lifespan of that those transactional data is shorter duration. Okay, so that's how actually, and the transactional data can go for a regular kind of changes and all that stuff. So that's how we differentiate between master data and transactional data. So in SAP terminology, so we know what is material, what is a customer, how to create suppliers, all that stuff we know. Okay, and also we have some idea how to create the sales orders, purchase orders, and goods movement documents and all that stuff. Also we have some high level. Okay, so now as part of this master data governance MDG course, so our scope is this portion, this master data portion. Okay, so our scope is exclusively from the master data portion. So now when I say master data MDG, master data governance, right? So that means, what does that mean? So we wanted to govern the master data. So during your change process or create process, we wanted to govern that particular master data. Okay. So what happens? Let's say, for example, we don't have MDG. In traditional way, if at all I have to create a material, so what I will do basically, I will log into the system. Okay. So now if at all I wanted to create a material, so I'll go to the respective transaction code MM01 to create a material. So you'll give some input over here. Okay. So the industry, let's say for example, this one, and you'll get some views. So basically this entire structure or entire views completes your master material creation process. Okay. So let's say for example, if I select some views, okay, I enter some description and base unit of measure. Okay, so let me save this. Okay, so what happened now? This material got created 2272. So this material got created, and if I go back to that backend table, so Mara is a table, the main basic table which stores this data. Of course, when you maintain other plants and other views, you will have other tables as well, like Mars, MBW and all that stuff. Okay, but let's look at whenever you hit the save button. So what happened? This material got created 2272 in the system. Okay, so this is the material that got created in the system on this particular date with this particular user, and whatever the information that we maintained, everything is captured. So this is fine. So that means we already have the respective transaction codes in SAP to create all these master data. Okay, now why this particular MDG is introduced and how it is different from creating the materials using this respect to transaction codes versus MDG. That means, so basically let's take example of this part. Let's say this is your SAP system. Okay, so in the backend you have your DB layer. Okay, and assume that this is your application layer. So what we have done, so I opened MM01 transaction. Okay, I entered some data and I hit the save button. So that material actually created in the system. That means in the database tables, I'll see this material. Now, this particular material now, because it is available in the system, this can be used by anyone for this material already created in the system. So either it can be used in your sales orders or purchase orders or anywhere this can be used. Okay, now what is the challenges with this approach? Okay, creating these materials directly in the system, right? So any guess? So we all know this process, but do you see any challenges with this approach?
Anybody can create the master batches.
Yes,
There is no control.
that's true. Good point.
Yeah.
Any other? Okay, so let me explain. Now what happens here in this process, the way how we are creating the master data, there is no governance. When I say governance means, let's take simple example. In your organization, a person wants to travel to some place, XYZ place, for any business trip. Okay, so then what happens? So the employee, so the employee will open that travel request somewhere in the organization in your where he will enter all his details, like what is his travel dates, and then what is the reason for the travel, what is the cost center that he is supposed to use. Okay, and all that details he will be entering over here. Once the details filled over here, then what happens? Once he submit the request, it goes to the your manager. Okay, so it goes to the manager, and what manager will do, he will review the data entered by the employee, and if there are any further corrections required, hey, this is not the exact date, or probably this cost center is not the right cost center. Okay, or sometimes, okay, this travel request is not required, let's reject this one. Okay, so the manager can review that the data entered by the request by the previous the employee, right? Now once manager provides his acceptance or approval in the tool, then it goes to your finance department. Finance department will actually review again the same data from the finance lens, right? So from the cost center and all that stuff. And then finance team, once they provide their acceptance, so then the request will go to finally to the travel desk. And the travel department, they will review and they'll talk to that employee, and finally they'll book that the tickets and everything, and the request will be closed. So this is the process that happens in general. That means the employee is not directly raising the request to the travel department, right? So in between there is a review process that you have, right? So because if there are any mistakes happens, you have a second eye, a third eye, where this kind of data request can be reviewed before triggering any request or any initiating any tickets or anything, right? So in the same way, if you look at this one, so the person, as someone mentioned rightly, the person who is actually having access, okay, so then he can log into the system and he can create the material. Like that, think about a bigger organization where you have thousands and lakhs of employees who are actually having authorization to create the materials or any master data. So then unnecessarily we are actually creating unnecessary, like lot of duplicate data or incorrect or inaccurate data into your system, because master data is very important for any organizations Okay, so if there is no control mechanism, right, so when you are creating a master data, it will result into lot of issues. Okay, let's say for example, you take example of customer master. So if the employer, the person is doesn't input the right address data, what happens? Then the customer, the deliveries can happen to a wrong address, right? And then it will delay the overall the delivery process, and there it will result into a kind of customer dissatisfaction, right? So likewise, we don't wanted to ultimately we don't wanted to have any this kind of junk data in my system. From the master data perspective, I should have a right data, that means, and accurate data. I don't want to have any duplicates in my system, right? So let's say you have Amazon. So when I'm selling some goods to Amazon, so I should have, depends on the region and everything, I should have a valid a single record. I don't want it to have multiple records for the same Amazon. If I have multiple records for the same customer, what happens if there is a change in the address? So then you need to update all the address for the same customer. If you have some 10 records in your system, you need to sync all the 10 records. Okay, so instead of that one, if you have a single record, so then always that will be your latest and greatest record all the time, right? So with all these things, basically there is a strong kind of requirement or necessity that we should have, or we should govern or control this master data. Okay, so then that's where actually initially there is a product called MDM, Master Data Management. Okay, so this is one of the Master Data Governance System, MDM. This is not a SAP product; it's a non-SAP product. Now, many organizations started using this MDM to create the master data, and from this particular master data, they used to send the data to the actual transactional systems. Okay, so now later what SAP has done is SAP acquired this particular MDM product. Okay, now later what they have done is they actually look at all the features of this particular MDM, and also there are many customers are there who are using MDM product. So what SAP has done is they build, by taking all the features of this particular MDM, they build another similar to that one SAP version of MDG, Master Data Governance. This is an SAP version of MDM product. Okay, so that's how this MDG got evolved. Okay, now because this MDM product is already more famous, popular, and many customers are already using in the world. So now slowly, whoever actually replicating using MDM as their master data solutions, and then they are integrating with SAP for their transactional activities. So slowly they started moving to MDG. Okay, so that's how SAP able to successfully capture all the MDM customers are onboarded through into MDG. Okay, and people are now started using MDG, which is a kind of replacement for MDM. And SAP is not going to provide any new enhancements and new features into MDM. So they are investing all their innovations and everything on this particular MDG product. Okay, so that's how this particular MDG product got evolved. And as part of this particular MDG, the scope of this particular MDG product is to govern your master data. When I say master data, examples are like your material master, business partners, customers, then suppliers. So all those objects are there. So all those comes under the MDG solutions. So that means as part of MDG, you can govern all these objects in the system. Okay, now this is an SAP product. It can very well fit into your existing SAP system. Okay, so that's why I put this particular box on top of your existing SAP system. This is just like another add-on component in the system. When I say another add-on component, you can see in your SAP system, right? So you can install SRM or CRM or probably some IS retail. So all those are the different modules. So how you can install the other modules in the same way, you can also activate MDG functionality on any SAP system. So that we will see in the architectural diagram going forward. But at very high level, what we are doing as part of MDG is we wanted to govern the master data. Okay, so as I said, like there are certain drawbacks that we discussed if you are directly creating the master data using the respective transaction codes. In addition to that one, there is again another, like from the what do you say, from the, so because let's say for example, what happens using this your XK01, I go to XK01. Let me show you here for customer master or any master data. Okay, So XK01 is where you can actually create an supplier. So when you're creating these particular suppliers or business partners in the system, okay, because what we are doing, we are capturing their personal information. So like his first name, last name, or his bank data. Okay, so we are also capturing the customers, suppliers, or partners, the personal information. Okay, as per that, the different countries, right? So they have certain norms that when you are when you are collecting all the customers information, because their personal data also we are collecting, right? Now when you're collecting all this personal data, so how you are ensuring this data is not misused, right? So that is again another one of the important requirement when whoever the bigger organizations, so they during the audit they need, there should be an answerable that, okay, so how you are actually ensuring this master data is properly maintained and it is not, or probably it is not misusing, right? So that's where having this governance, right? So basically I create this master data using this MDG, or probably not, if not MDG, maybe any other governance solutions. So I have all that processes set up with the required authorizations, controls, and everything. So then that's how, if you are managing all this particular master data, so then we are good. Okay. So that is also another side of like going for this kind of governance solutions. So there are other solutions are also there in the market. Like I mentioned, MDM, which is one of the oldest product, and there are other third party solutions are also available, but MDG is one of the most popular solution or the product when it comes to master data, especially when someone is working with SAP. So MDG has a lot of benefits. So that's why actually this MDG become more popular, and we will see all those features. Okay. Now, so with that one, what happens is, okay, so this is the definition of your master data governance. So it's a kind of state of the art master data management solution providing out of box domain specific master data governance. Okay, so when I say out of box domain specific master data governance, that means basically in MDG, when you are, if you are activating or installing MDG on any SAP system, by default your material master, business partners, customers, then supplier master or vendor master, okay, and your finance objects. Okay, so and also there are other objects are as well there, like article master. Article master is exclusively used in is retail space. Okay, and we also have something called EAM objects. When I say EAM objects, those are like equipment. If anyone has experience in working on SAP PM module, plant maintenance module, that's where these EAM objects are used exclusively. So some of the examples are equipments, functional locations, bill of materials. Okay, some of the examples, okay, for EM objects. So ultimately all most commonly used masters are these material, BP, customer, vendor, finance, and depends on that the customer, like their business. Sometimes some customers, if they already used IS retail, then they will go for article master. This is also just like your material. Article is an another object. If you go to MM41 is a T code, like how we are creating material using MM01, MM41 is for article creation, right? So this is also again another master data, and there are bunch of master data are available under EAM. Okay, so ultimately, so SAP, when you install MDG component, all these are the out of box objects. When I say out of box objects, so SAP provided certain UIs to create your master data, to create your probably for the search applications, to perform some bulk operations on this particular master data and replicate this data from one SAP system to another SAP system. So all MDG features, the workflows, change document applications, okay, and kind of analytical log applications. So for every master data, so all these features SAP already provided, those are pre-built, right? So that means you can activate your MDG and do little bit of configuration, start using this standard out of objects. So that's what this particular definition talks about, providing out of box domain specific master data governance centrally. Okay, so you can use this MDG solution for your master data maintenance. When I say maintenance, it can be either create or it can be change, or you wanted to distribute the data from MDG to different systems, right? So the typical MDG architecture look like is, this is how it look like. Let's say, for example, this is your SAP MDG system where you create all your master data, and in your organization, in the landscape, you might be having multiple SAP systems like target 1, target 2, target 3. Okay, so this can be your SRM system. This can be your, let's say, for example, your finance system, or this can be some non-SAP system. Okay, so these are the systems where your transactional activities are happening. Okay, so when transactional activities are happening in this system, you need your master data you are creating in a separate SAP system. So you need to distribute the data from your MDG system to all these respective SAP systems or non-SAP systems, so that the master data is available over here. Okay, and the data can be used for transactional activities, right? So that's how the typical architecture of your MDG look like. We will discuss in detail. So here you can create, change, perform any maintenance of your master data and distribute the data to your respective target systems in your landscape. So that's the definition. So this MDG system helps to govern your master data, and this will become your centralized master data creation, maintenance, and then distribute the data to your respective transactional system. So that's the definition of MDG. Okay, now what are the features that it offers? Because I have an option to create master data directly using MM01 or XK01 BPT codes respectively. Now when I'm going with a MDG solution, that means basically you create the master data in MDG. That means not in your regular SAP layer. So if you look at this particular diagram, so this is where usually we create the MM01 using MM01 or any BPT code, right? Now with MDG, once you install MDG and enable all the processes, we create the master data. How you are creating using MM01, similar kind of application is also available over here. So you create the master data in this system. Okay, that means it in the same system, it will be a different UI. It's a browser based different UI. Okay, so you create the master data over here, and once all the approvals, whatever that the governance process that you set up, then finally the data will move from here to your respective backend tables. Okay, so that's all. So basically, okay, so now, so we have two options, right? So either you can create the data using MM01 or you create the data using MDG layer. So the application that provided within MDG, right? So now what is the advantages that you get if you are going with this particular MDG solution to maintain your master data? Okay, so there are some of the important key features are provided over here. So each feature here is a kind of topic to us, okay, in the course. Okay, so first one is governance. Okay, so governance means basically if you look at a typical architecture, so let's say for example, if I'm creating a metal using MM01T code, right? So the user will log into MM01, he enter the data, and once he click the save button, it gets stored into your database table. Okay, so this is the regular approach. Using MDG approach, what happens? Let's take a simple workflow example. Okay, so user will log into MDG UI application. Okay, so he will enter all the data. We can call him usually a kind of requester who wants to initiate a change process. We call him as a requester. So he enter the data, submit the request. Then it goes to, let's take example of maybe a procurement team. Okay, now in the procurement team will open the same request and they will maintain the procurement related or plant related attributes in the same request. So let's say for example, you have 100 attributes to maintain. So in this example, only one person is maintaining all the 100 attributes. But whereas in this case, out of 100 attributes, 10 basic attributes will be maintained by the requester. Maybe 40 procurement related attributes will be maintained by this particular procurement team. And then it goes to, let's say for example, finance team. Okay, and they will be maintaining maybe some 30 attributes which are related to finance over here. And then finally it goes to, let's say for example, sales team, and they will maintain, let's say for example, 20 attributes which makes up to your 100 attributes. And finally the data go and sit into your final destination table. So if you look at the difference here, the difference here is, in this case only one person is involved in the process to set up a material. Whereas in MDG, it's not one single person, it's a multiple people. So this person is expert in maintaining the basic attributes, but at the procurement related attributes are maintained by the procurement experts. Finance attributes maintained will be maintained by the finance related attributes experts. Sales will be maintained by the sales related attributes maintained by the sales experts. Okay, so that means here there are multiple people involved in setting up one material, which means we assume that these folks are experts in their domain, and they know, they are very well aware of what attributes they need to maintain for the attributes that they are responsible, right? So that means at the end of this process, I can assure that the data that is maintained, the record that is getting created in my system, in my SAP system, is a golden record for me. Why? Because this data is maintained by the respective experts and reviewed by all the people, and then finally we are creating at the end of the process. Okay, so that's how that governance process, one of the key importance of this particular governance process. It's not one person. Maybe if the mistake is done at one level, at the other level the people can catch hold of that one, right? So we have more than one eye when you are setting up this particular master data. Okay, so that particular governance, it enables that governance, and that all talks about this one and governance feature. And it also has a better audit trails. When I say audit trails, so if someone is changing some data, so it will get captured properly. We know that there are some audit change logs are available even in your ERP layer if you're directly creating using your respective transaction codes. But here it has a better audit trails, who changed what, how many times this attribute changed, and there are many separate applications are available for a better visibility perspective, right? So that we will be discussing. Okay, so this is about the governance, where we are adding the governance flavor to when you are setting up a master data. Okay, now the second important point here is consistency. Consistency means, when I say consistency, so in MDG we have multiple features, there are multiple applications are there. Let me show you one simple example so that you can better correlate. Okay, so you can see here there is something called this particular tab, business partner governance. Okay, so this particular business partner governance, this is one stop for all business partner related activities. So with respect to the BP master data, whatever the activities that you wanted to perform, so you can actually click on this particular tab. It will have some bunch of applications, hyperlinks, where you can either create, or you can search, or you can actually perform bulk uploads and all that stuff you can do. Okay, so similar to that one, this is a material governance. Okay, so now if you look at, this is the home page for your material governance. Now depends on your roles here, some of the links will be available. Okay, so now this is a way, using this particular link you can create a material using MDG. This is similar to your MM01, but this is a browser based application. Okay, and when you are creating this material from here, that means you are actually setting up that material using MDG processes. Similarly, you have a change process, or you can mark for delete, or you can search the materials. Okay, so or you can, there are some applications are there where you can perform bulk operations, and you can also look at the workflows and everything. You can set up the replications from here. So you can perform a lot of activities with respect to material master data from this one single home page. Similarly, from business partner point of view also. Okay, so you will find pretty much similar kind of home page here, but the only thing is that here you'll have such business partners, or create business partners, or file upload download. So the home pages, if you look at the home pages, these are pretty similar. Okay, and similarly, if I go to a search business partner, and in this one I'll go to a search material. Okay, so you can see there is some search parameters are there. In the down you have something called result. Similarly, here also you have some search parameters. In the down you have result. So what I'm trying to say here is, with respect to consistency, which means all the applications in MDG, irrespective of your master data, have the similar look and feel, and the features like setting up a workflow, or setting up an DRF replication configurations, or setting up a kind of bulk upload scenarios. So whatever the scenarios that MDG offers, all the features, those are same across all the objects. If you know how to set up a workflow for material creation scenario, the same concept you can exactly apply for business partner. Same concept you can apply for customer master or finance objects. So that means So that if you know all the MDG features, the backend object can be differ, like it can be material or BPR, customer or vendor, but the look and feel, the configuration steps, everything remains same across all the objects. Okay, and even you wanted to set up some rules, some business rules for an object. If you know how to set up a business rule for material, the same concept you can apply. In fact, the baddies also remains same. Okay, so the backend baddies and everything, we will discuss each and everything. Okay, so this is what this consistency talks about with respect to your master data MDG features for each master. So it has the similar kind of consistency approach. The functionality remains same, the configuration steps remain same, everything remains same. Okay, so that's what this consistency talks about. Okay, so the next feature is called consolidation. So consolidation is kind of another feature. So in MDG, at a very high level, we will be having three topics. One is MDG, Master Data Governance, which we are going to learn in this as part of this course. After that, we have something called MDC, Master Data Consolidation. So this is consolidation. So this is also there in our course curriculum. Okay, and after that, we also have another one, DQM, Data Quality Management. So these three form your complete MDG, and these two are optional. It's not mandatory, but these two are optional thing. MDG is the one which is a mandatory, others are optional. Depends on the features requirements, you can enable this one. So we'll go through this one. But ultimately, this particular consolidation topic, so we know the MDG purpose. MDG is basically to govern your master data, but consolidation is basically, let's look at a typical scenario. You have some source systems, source 1, source 2, source 3. Okay, so this is your MDG system. Okay, now due to ideally, as what I mentioned earlier is, so you create your master data in MDG system and you replicate the data to the respective target systems. Okay, which is fine. But sometimes what happens is, depends upon that the geographical reasons or that the restrictions or limitations, sometimes the data will get created in the respective source systems. Now you need to, but in your organization, we know we cannot ask them to come to MDG and create the data. So the data has to be created there, because these are the source systems for your master data creation. But once maybe these are non-SAP systems, but once the data, I wanted to bring it to MDG and I wanted to create the data in my SAP system, and then I replicate the same data to the respective target systems. So in this case, what happens is, let's say the same customer, you take example of like a HP. Okay, so HP customer is already set up with here with the customer number 100, and the same HP customer also set up here with 200, because these are two different separate systems. It could happen that the same customer can exist with different IDs in different systems. Now when you are replicating the data to here to your MDG system, right? So in MDG, we don't want it to create, you have two options. Either you create three customers, 100, 200, 300, or create a one single customer 400 in MDG and map all these things to a one single customer. So from now onwards, I will always refer this 400 customer only in my MDG or in my downstream systems, right? So basically what we are doing is we are consolidating these multiple customers into a kind of single customer. So there are certain algorithms are there, like best record calculation, most recent, there are certain algorithms are there which we will be discussing during the consolidation. But ultimately, when you have multiple source systems and when you are getting the data into MDG system, so basically some customers, we enable this consolidation process. So consolidation process, just like your MDG, consolidation also is a kind of another add-on component. Okay, though it is part of MDG, but it's an independent component. Okay, so you can have MDG alone, or you can have MDC alone, or you can have both together in the same system. Okay, consolidation comes up with its own set of processes. If you activate consolidation processes, then you can actually use some applications with respect to consolidation as well. Okay, so that we will discuss more in detail about the consolidation in coming sessions. Okay, so the next one is the integration. So integration, by looking at this particular picture itself, you can see, being MDG as a centralized master data system, you might need to connect to multiple source systems or multiple target systems to receive the data and to send that to replicate the data. That means there's a lot of integrations required with respect to MDG to other systems in your landscape. Those systems can be either SAP systems or SAP systems, right? So in that case, MDG has some flexibility, or it can talk to multiple systems, SAP and non-SAP systems. So that's where actually the integration is also very flexible, and it reuses the native SAP integration technologies that we will discuss. And the data replicate, we have a separate topic, data replication topic. So there we will be discussing about these integrations and everything. Okay. Now the next feature is flexibility. So flexibility is basically, if you look at this particular master data, so as I mentioned initially, so these are your master data from SAP standpoint: material, customer, suppliers, business partners, and all these things. But sometimes the customer says that, hey, employee is also one of the master data for me in my organization. Our plant creation is also another master data for me. So in that case, that means basically those are the, we call it as a custom objects or custom masters. Okay. So custom master in the sense, the master data which is not covered as part of out of box MDG feature, but I wanted to bring into MDG scope. When I say bring into MDG scope, earlier I'm creating employee master using some HR transaction code. Now I wanted to bring the same into MDG. That means I wanted to enable governance process for that employee master. That means you need to bring into MDG scope. So, but in the standard SAP, there is no out of box solution for employee master. That means this requires or qualifies for a custom object. Custom object. So how SAP build all the features for the standard objects? We are saying these are the out of box objects, but this will become your custom object. That means you need to build all that stuff. How SAP build MDG build for this out of box, you need to build a similar kind of features for your custom object as well, right? So that also it supports. So SAP also provided a flexibility or a framework. The MDG framework supports not only for the standard objects, you can bring your own custom object as well into the MDG scope, your own custom object as well into MDG scope. That also we will discuss. We have one topic, custom object frame objects, bringing custom objects into MDG scope. That also we will discuss. Okay. And finally, data quality. Okay. So now data quality is nothing but, let's say, one thing is where the users will log in and they maintain the data, which is fine. Though these users are actually experts in those respective areas, but we need to have certain validations in the backend. We need to set up certain rules in the backend. Those we call it as a business rules, right? So when you're setting up any master data, some attribution will be maintained or input by the user, business user, and some based on that data, some of the attributes we will derive in the system. Okay. So let's say, for example, I'm creating a finished goods. So I know in my organization, whenever I'm creating a finished good, this finished goods should be by default should extend it to these 10 plants. So now this is a same, this rule is same across all the finished goods. Why you need to allow the end user to maintain manually, extend manually to create, enter the plant data. Instead of that one, in the backend, if you set up a rule, hey, whenever if user selects that material type as a finished good, then in the backend automatically you add those 10 plants to your master data, right? So that will be kind of, that saves the user time, and that also gives a better user satisfaction. And most importantly, there is no chance or no scope for making a mistake, because if you leave it to the end user to maintain the data, then the user may or may not enter correctly, right? By mistake, he extended to only 9 plants. Then it will result into some issues. So if you set up a rule, we know that rule always works like that. So it will always extend to the 10 plants only. So those we will discuss as part of the data quality. In the data quality, we have a topic called BRF rules. So there we will be discussing how to set up all these kind of rules in the system. Okay. So even functionals also can set up these rules. No need to write any ABAP code. Okay. So all these things we will be discussing. So these are the top 6 features of MDG. Each feature we will be discussing as part of our course topics.
What is consolidation? Consolidation is the one of the topic right here.
Yes.
What exactly will do?
So consolidation is basically, consolidation comes up with some features Those features are like, let's say, for example, as I mentioned, when you are getting the data from multiple source systems in the organization, let me show you, yeah, this particular picture, right? So where it's not only, sometimes what happens is you don't create the master data directly in MDG, okay, but the data will get created in some non-SAP system somewhere in the landscape, but that data you wanted to send it to MDG, because if I don't have one view of that particular data, what happens is, if the leadership, top leadership, they wanted to look at, hey, how much business that we done with my organization, right? So then I need to, because those, their transactional activities are set up with the different accounts with different account numbers. So first I need to log into, I need to get the report from source one, how much with this customer number 100, and get the similar kind of data from 200, get the similar kind of data from 300, then club it and see. That gives, so there is a lot of homework that you need to do before looking at that high level reports, right? But if I do that consolidation and have a single record in place of these three records in my MDG, or in my MDG, right? So then I can get that with a single view or single click, right? So that's where actually this consolidation, that is one of the example of consolidation. It also offers some to perform some bulk updates or mass loads, and it also helps you to, when you are getting 3-4 records of for the same customer or same material, how you can actually identify out of these three, when you are merging into a single record, how you can actually calculate the best record. Obviously, I don't want it to set up 3 records in my system. I wanted to set up one single record. Now, how do I calculate the out of these 3, which is the best record, and I wanted to store, right? So there is an algorithms to capture your best record calculation and all that stuff. So basically, this consolidation is a kind of add-on feature where you can perform certain activities. One of the most commonly used feature in consolidation is the mass updates or bulk uploads. So that we will be discussing. Is that answer your question?
Yeah. So out of box domains are the custom data model, right?
Yes. So as on SAP, in SAP, only these material master, business partners, material master, business partners. When I say business partners, it includes customer master, then vendor master. Okay. Then in finance area, we have something called cost center, profit center, cost element group. Okay. And then we have company code. Okay. And GL account. So these are the different masters under finance area.
Hey, you know, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
Okay. So also there is something called article master. Okay. And there is something called EAM objects in plant maintenance mod area. So we have something called equipment, functional location, bombs, task list. So we have some bunch of attributes under this one. So these are the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So these are the masters that are covered as part of MDG, or covered in the sense when you can plug and play kind of thing. So these for these masters, you can just activate the MDG, do a little bit of base configuration, then start using your use this for your master data creation. But if someone wants to govern employee master, that is not part of your out of box objects or any other object like plant master. Okay. Or else maybe company, what else, any other than this, any other objects that you think you wanted to use MDG features to set up this master data, then that considered as a custom objects.
WBS is also comes under one of the out of box.
Yeah, WBS is also comes under your custom object only. Okay.
Yeah, fine.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay. So these are the at high level the MDG features. Okay, now you can see whatever we discussed, some of the like the pictures over here, which kind of depicts that whatever we spoke. So you can see here, all these are SAP. This is also SAP system. Okay, and this is also your SAP system. This is also SAP system. This is a non-SAP system, right? So here what it says is your MDG is a centralized master data system. That means basically you have one system dedicatedly used for master data governance processes, and then create all your masters here, like your MM or your VP or your finance. So all the objects create here only, and then replicate to the respective target systems. So that here, these are examples for your transactional systems. When I say transactional systems, where your sales orders, purchase orders, and all that stuff will be created over here. So to initiate any transactional process, you need a master data. So that particular master data will be created here, and it will be replicated to the transactional systems. So this is a typical diagram of your MDG. Any questions on this? Okay. So the next one is consolidation. So consolidation is basically here you have your source systems where maybe the master data will be created over here. But once you activate your consolidation on top of your MDG system, okay, so then what happens? You can use the consolidation features as part of this component, and you can actually perform some certain operations. It can be your mass updates, or it can be your best record calculation, okay, or else it can be clubbing this data into consolidating this data into a single record. So there are multiple features are there. We will discuss the use cases for the consolidation when we reach to that particular topic. Okay, so in this one we don't have MDG, it's only the consolidation component, just only to run the consolidation processes. But there is another picture where you have the hybrid approach. Hybrid approach means basically here this portion can exist separately, and this portion, we saw this portion in the first diagram, this portion we saw in the second diagram. But now here what we are doing, we are clubbing both into a single. That means in the same SAP system, we are activating MDG components, we are activating MDC components, and MDC component will run through, will use these consolidation processes. And once this consolidation process is done, it will send the data, hand over the data to MDG processes, and in MDG process again it will go through all the governance processes and everything. Finally the data will be replicated to the target systems. So it's an hybrid approach where you can activate your consolidation as well as MDG, everything in a single SAP system, and you can make use of the respective features. Okay, so any questions on this? So before getting into the system, so I wanted to cover the basics, background, architecture, and everything. So some concepts, important concepts, so that once we get into the system, we can actually go through each and every topic and we can build the scenarios. Fine. So the next one, business functions. So have you heard about this term business functions earlier? Don't look at MDG. It's just, have you heard about a business functions terminology earlier? Okay. So business functions are nothing but, let's say you have an SAP system. Okay. So you have SAP system, the base your ERP system, where your logistics and the core NetWeaver SAP system, where the default SDMM modules are available. Now on this system, I wanted to use SRM functionality or CRM thing. So those are the add-on components. We always say those are kind of add-on components. So those add-on components, how you can actually bring into this particular system by activating business functions. So for every module, like for SRM, there will be some business functions. Okay, and for CRM, or else for your, let's say for example, IS utilities. Okay, so any additional modules, add-on modules you wanted to use in your system, then that will happen through something called business functions. Okay, so this will be basis responsibility business functions. Okay, so you can bring your add-on components onto your SAP system by activating these business functions. So similarly, for if at all you wanted to install MDG, for MDG also there are business functions are available. Okay, so once the basis folks log into SAP system, and if they activate the MDG specific business functions over here, then you can start seeing your MDG related applications as well, and you can start using MDG functionality as well in system. So which means the prerequisite is your SAP system. You need one SAP system. In the SAP system, you can activate this add-on component to enable MDG processes in the system. Okay, that happens through your business functions. Okay, so this particular business functions. Okay, now where can I see? Of course, even though it's a basis activity, but it's important to know for all MDG folks this particular thing. I will tell you why it is important. Okay, so now first look at how to activate these business functions, how basis will activate, or how can I look at where these basis functions or business functions are available. Okay, so for that one, you can actually log into any SAP system. Okay, so the transaction code is SFW5. SFW5. Okay, so if you go to this SFW5, this is the place where you can find all business functions, not only MDG, all business functions with respect to all add-on components. Okay, so click on continue. Okay, here expand this MDG. There is a search button. Not this. Okay, so I can see here, these are the business functions with respect to consolidation. Okay, now in this particular system, these business functions are already active. Okay, so MDG underscore consolidation, cust object to customer. This is the customer to material to supplier. Okay, so these business functions are with respect to consolidation processes. So if you activate these business functions, consolidation processes you can start using. Okay, similarly for MDG as well, let me scroll.
These are version specific, right?
Yeah, so I'll talk about this one versions as well. Okay, now you can see here, these are the business functions with respect to MDG, starting with MDG underscore. Okay, now if you look at this, the first core one is foundation. You can see from foundation, then you have foundation 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 up to 14. Okay, so this particular foundation business functions are, now the numbers that you see with each release, SAP with each release, they come up with some different business function. What does that mean? So I'm in MDG 6 version. Okay, now in that case, in MDG 6 or 7 version, this is the latest. During that time, this is the latest business function. Now if at all I wanted to upgrade to MDG 8, right? So then you need to activate this foundation, all the previous ones, along with that one, the latest one, 6. Okay, because this 6 contains the difference, the delta changes from 5 till 6. It's not like you have to activate only the latest one. You need to activate from starting till the latest version, the latest business function. Okay, so then SAP released with MDG 9 version, 7 is the foundation, then 8, 9. Okay, after that with S4 HANA releases, they come up with S4 specific versions as well. Okay, so this is the currently that one you see is the latest one. So 2023, this is the latest one. So this is the latest business function. So you need to, it's important to activate all. It's not only activate always 14 will bring everything. It's not like that. So everything has to be activated. Of course, this will be taken care of by basis. Okay, now here it has foundation. Okay, I'll tell you what is the difference between foundation and other business functions over here. Then after that, you see something with respect to material. Okay, so material is there. Again, the same number range, the version concept applicable here as well. Okay, so after material, there is finance. Finance will be there in the above as well. Okay, so you can see after above foundation, see these are the finance related business functions. Okay, and then you also have something called supplier related business functions. Then you also have something called customer related business functions. And then finally, business partner related business functions as well. Okay, so that means these business functions are broadly categorized into 2 categories. Okay, so one is foundation. Okay, and then from foundation, you have different set of business functions with respect to material, with respect to business partner, customer, and then vendor, and then finance related. Okay, so if at all you wanted to go for MDG solutions for now, right now for only material master, then foundation is a prerequisite. It's a prerequisite. So you have to activate foundation business function for sure, irrespective of your objects. Okay, because foundation brings the common features, common functionalities into the system. After foundation, material specific business functions you have to activate. Then this particular combination will enable you to start using your material master for using MDG solutions. Similarly, later once material master is done, now I wanted to enable the governance for BP customer vendor. Then this will be, you can activate these business functions. And finally, you can activate this one. So it's a kind of switch framework. That means you, whatever is required, you can activate only along with the foundation, you can activate only the respective objects, or else you can activate all together also. There is no issue, absolutely. In fact, we strongly recommend to activate all in one shot instead of doing one by one. Okay. So, but ultimately you can see the business functions are categorized. You have a business functions for foundation, for material, for BP, and for finance objects. For all these objects, you have the business functions. So now why I'm explaining this particular business functions, of course, though it's a basis activity. Okay. One thing is you will always know from here what is your latest version installed. And other important point is in future, okay, 2023 is there and all the business functions are activated up to date. Now later basis, usually when they go for a latest support packs, in general at a S4 system level, that latest support packs also brings some, what do you call, some new business functions in MDG. Okay, so those will be by default in inactive mode. Now when they are usually basis, when they are going for an upgrade, either they will tell you that, hey, these business functions are got added as part of this support pack, but these are in inactive mode. Do you want it to activate? Or else the other way around is you can proactively go to this one and look at what are the business functions that are new recently introduced, and look at the features that this latest business function carries. Maybe SAP introduced some new features as part of that one. And if you activate that business function, of course, you need to do that end-to-end testing with your existing processes as well. But along with that one, also you will get an opportunity to start using the new features, right? So that's why this will help you for a functional and technical folks to come to this transaction and look at, but don't activate on your own. This will comes under the basis scope. Most probably we won't be having authorizations, but you can ask basis if you see some business functions are not active. You can always first try that in a sandbox system or test system, and then you can plan for a production deployment. Okay, so that's how. So this particular diagram talks about your consolidation is a separate set of business functions, and you have your application. Under application, it covers your object specific business functions, and you also have something called foundation. Under the foundation, it covers the business functions with respect to your common features and common functionality. Okay, so that's about the business functions, how you can actually activate your MDG to enable that MDG features or MDG functionality in any SAP system. Okay, so any questions on this?
No, you're good.
Okay, great. So the next one is, we are talking about what I mentioned so far is to start using your MDG, right? In any, you need any SAP system. That means, so let's say for example, this is your SAP system. Now, if you go to that SFW5 and if you activate that business functions, so MDG functionality also available over here, and you can start using the MDG functionality. That means the prerequisite is it should be an SAP system, which is fine. Okay. Now, let's say for example, in the landscape, you have transactional system 1, transactional system 2, and transactional system 3. 3 transactional systems are there. Now, all these are having that SAP as a application layer. Okay, so that which means you can activate here as well your MDG because you are meeting that prerequisite, right? So you can activate MDG in the respective systems here as well. Okay, now one option is you can activate MDG in one of these systems because it is meeting that criteria. The other option is have a separate brand new system. Don't touch these systems and have a get a brand new SAP system and activate your MDG functionality in this one. And then don't activate anything over here MDG related stuff. Just use this as a plain transactional systems, and you use this data to replicate to, you can replicate the data from your MDG to the respective transactional systems. This is again another approach. Okay, so now the point is, This comes under the deployment. So where do I deploy my MDG component? Either in the transactional system side, or in, should I get a brand new SAP system and activate that one, right? So that's where we have two concepts here. One is co-deployment. So co-deployment. So co-deployment means you choose one of the existing transactional system and activate your MDG. Activate your MDG. This kind of approach we call it as a co-deployment. That means your MDG coexist with the transactional system. So both transactional activities are happening in the same system. At the same time, you can run your MDG process as well. Okay, so which means you just look at this SAP system. Okay, so here I can go to VA01 and I can create my sales order. Okay, sales order. At the same time, I can also go to MDG UI applications and I can create the master data. So both activities, your master data creation, master data maintenance, and transactional activities, all are happening in the same SAP system. Okay, so that kind of scenario we call it as a co-deployment scenario. Okay, there is another concept called hub scenario. Okay, which means I don't wanted to touch this one. Let my transactional system remain untouched as is. Instead of touching that my MDG transactional system, I'll get some brand new SAP system. Okay, and on this brand SAP system, I will actually activate my MDG components in this system. Okay, so that means now I will use this as my centralized master data hub system. Okay, and that means in this particular system there is no transactional activities. You will use this system just only for master data creation. Okay, don't use this for any transactional activities. Use this system, restrict all the transactional activities in the system, restrict everything and use it for only master data creation, and replicate the data to your transactional system. Okay, so here the name itself says as a hub. You are introducing one system, separate brand new system, use this as your centralized master data hub and replicate the data to the respective transactional systems. Okay, so these are the two approaches that we can think of when it comes to activating MDG functionality on any SAP system. Because people will ask, okay, when you're working on any MDG project, so they say, is it a co-deployment model or hub model, right? So this is the co-deployment and hub concept. Okay, any questions on this? Is this clear?
No,
What is
no.
it? Yeah, please.
Oh, we said no doubts.
Said no
Oh.
doubts.
Clear, right? So you are clear with co-deployment and hub. What is co-deployment? What is hub? So in case of co-deployment, both you don't introduce new system. You will use the existing SAP transactional system only, and hub you have another hub one. Okay, which is fine. Now, how do you recommend? Like, I mean, whether you wanted to go with co-deployment and hub scenario, right? Because when you go to the customer will say that, okay, on what basis we recommend co-deployment? Should we go with co-deployment or hub model? What are the pros and cons with each of these approaches? Okay, so can anyone, by looking at this diagram, so can anyone tell which is good and which aspect?
Co-deployment is the best model because maintenance is less and cost also less. You don't need to maintain both servers for both the systems.
Yes. Okay, so no maintenance, additional maintenance basically, and no cost involved. Good. So this is fine. Any other point?
Any upgradation will happen MDG hub. We can do it in MDG alone. It will not impact the transaction data. That will
not impact transaction data. So that means that in that case you are talking that pros, which is good, right? Okay, good. Yeah, I will more elaborate on that point.
So, issues we'll see more in hub systems when compared to co-deployment.
Replication issues in hub. Why?
Since the IDOCs and so it will transfer to the other systems, where in co-deployment it will be easy transmission rate as compared to hub model.
Yeah, in a way, correct. But if you set up properly that, ideally you should not expect any issues, right? So the data should be flown smoothly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so any other points you can think of? Okay, fine. So let me put that points over here. You have, in case of hub, separate system and you have a separate transactional box. Okay, so here the pros that we discussed is no maintenance, which is good. No cost, this is also valid. Okay, now the another important point here is, okay, So look at this transactional system, like you might be having some SD or MM consultants in the system. And if there is a new company code that you need to set up, okay, new plant you wanted to set up or new sales organization, so those we call it as a like config data or reference master data, right? So if you create a new company code in your SPRO configuration,
That customization comes under first point, right? Repetitive maintenance is not needed, right?
this maintenance I'm talking from the basis standpoint.
Okay, in general system maintenance perspective.
Yeah, system maintenance, because that also involves some cost as well, right? There will be an effort from basis as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then
So-
the repetition of customizing will be saved. Yes.
Exactly. Okay. No additional customizing, right? That means even though if you do in SPRO, your MDG can actually consider that one, and you can create materials or customers vendors using that particular configuration. So it's a one-time setup in the system. Okay. Whereas if you look at in MDG hub scenario, right? So if someone create a new company code, you need to sync the same company code here as well. Then only in it, or it's vice versa. If you set up the company code here in MDG, then you have to do it in this one as well. It's a vice versa. So basically here the point is the config data should be in sync in this case every time. Okay. Otherwise what happens is, someone mentioned, right, the failures of FIDOCs and all that stuff, it will result into that kind of situation. Okay. So that also goes in favor of this particular code deployment only. Okay. So, okay. So these are the things. Let's look at these 3 points are in favor of code deployment. Okay. Now look at another important factor. So someone mentioned that if you are going for upgrades and anything, right? So then what happens is, though your maintenance cost and everything is, which is fine, but most importantly, one of the point if you look at, so if at all you wanted to install MDG component, so the underlying your ERP should be at some support pack level. Let's assume that. Okay. Now you are in MDG 8 version, the underlying support pack is, let's say, 2.0. Okay. So then there are certain features which are business is looking in MDG. That feature is not available in 8 version. Okay, this feature is available in MDG 9 or 9.2, the latest version. So which means to activate that MDG 9.2, the latest business function, then the underlying support pack also you need to look at whether it supports or not. Maybe as per SAP documentation, they say that the support pack should be 3.0 to activate your 9.2 version, which means basically there is a dependency. Okay, dependency with what? Your transactional system. Your MDG has a direct dependency on your transactional system. Now, if at all you wanted to go for an upgrade, MDG upgrade, so you need to call out your support pack upgrade as well, which will impact the underlying existing business processes. So you need to get the alignment from all the service lines who are using these transactional processes, right? There might be SD process, MM process, or finance process. Likewise, there are multiple business processes are running, and you need to get an alignment, because they might be support pack upgrade is not a simple thing, right? So basically you need to adjust or perform a lot of SPO activities and everything, and there will be, you need to call out some time for testing as well for all your business scenarios, transactional scenarios. Okay, so that is a very big effort. So it is difficult to get the approvals or alignment from all the teams, or even you got that alignment from all the teams, it's a big process, because you need to, all the testing has to be done not only from the master data point of view, testing has to be done from your business scenarios for your transactional activities. Okay, so that is a very hard dependency. Now, whereas if you look at the hub scenario, right? So what happens? Let it be there. This is at a support pack 2.0, no problem. In MDG to go for 9.2 version, I need the underlying SAP version. I wanted to upgrade from 2.0 to 3.0, right? Because there are no transactional activities, no business processes are running. I no need to check with any business people, transactional people, right? Only you need an alignment from basis and your master data business people. That's it. Then so whatever the effort that we discussed for the transactional side, all those effort is not required. You need to just run through your existing master data scenarios only for testing effort, right? So that means let your target system can be under the lower version, which is 2.0, and your MDG system can have 3.0 version. Okay, so basically there is no hard dependency with your transactional system. So that gives you a flexibility to upgrade whenever you wanted to upgrade for some latest version of your MDG system. Okay. Again, the same vice versa. Even if your transaction system wants to go for an upgrade, so they need to align with you, right? So basically you got the point. So basically here there is a hard dependency, whereas in hub we are talking about both are two separate systems. There is no dependency. That gives a good flexibility for the business in future. Maybe at this point of time it may not be valid or important, but depends on the size of the business. It will become very difficult later stage if you don't think of all these scenarios at this point of time. Okay, so that is one of the important advantage when you go for an hub scenario. And also SAP strongly recommends to go for hub scenario because it eliminates the dependencies with your transactional system. Okay, so this is one thing. And another important process, another important feature is also there. Okay, which actually talks in favor of your hub scenario. Okay, so what is that? You look at this co-deployment scenario. Let's say there are 100 batch jobs are running in your transactional system at a point. Okay, now with the introduction of MDG, you might be performing some bulk operations, which will bring maybe some 50 more processes activities at the same time. So that means in one single system, you are performing MDG processes and transactional processes. That means the system resources should be shared across all these things. Sometimes what happens, it will become a bottleneck at your DB level as well, because all these processes are busy with occupying their processing the respective activities, and everything will come and try to update the respective database tables, and there will be a bottleneck at the DB layer. Okay, so because no matter how much you increase your system configuration, still you at one point of time you will reach to this stage. Okay, now the same thing, if I distribute between two systems, 100 processes run here, the MDG 50 new processes will run over here. So there is no overlap. So both you are dividing your the same performance, the capability now distributed across two separate systems. So which will be the good option in this case, right? So hub is a good option. So you never come across any performance issues in your system. Okay. So now with all these points, so it is preferable from SAP, even SAP also prefers that hub is a better approach. But sometimes still some customers, they don't have that much of business, and they have only single SAP system in my landscape. But just only for this purpose, why I wanted to introduce a new system, so they can go with co-deployment. It all depends on the volume, the scope that we are talking. So we need to choose this hub versus co-deployment one. Any questions on this? Okay, so this gives you that the same whatever we discussed just now. Okay, if you look at this MDG as a hub scenario, it is replicating the data to two separate transactional systems, operation systems. So this is one transactional system, this is another transactional system. Okay, so this is an example for hub scenario. The down one, you see, they are not introducing a new system. In fact, the existing operational one transactional system only, they activated the MDG component on top of this one. Okay, and you can replicate the data to other transactional system. So in this case, co-deployment, there you have only two systems, whereas in case of hub you have three systems. Okay, fine. So this also talks about the same thing, the diagram. You can see in case of hub scenario, you have your transactional system, and it shows that all the config you have to sync it to MDG at regular intervals. Okay, whereas in case of a co-deployment scenario, you have your configurations, SPRO configurations or reference master data in the same system, and your MDG process also runs in the same system. Okay, so that is the these diagrams talks about the features that discuss the pros and cons that we discussed with each of these approaches. Okay, so what we discussed so far, we discussed why we need MDG, and then after that we discussed how to activate MDG in any system, and also we discussed about hub versus co-deployment scenarios. Okay, so now let's look at another important feature, how it is different. Okay, so let me one simple diagram, and this concept is very important in your entire MDG course, right? So this concept is very, this is the base, this is the base of your the complete the rest of the topics. Okay, so now, so you have, this is your DB layer. Okay, now you have your backend database tables. Okay, I will say example for this one, Mara table, and let's say Marcy table, or else you can have your LFA1, okay, or KNA1, all your database application specific tables, the standard tables, nothing new. Okay, your but 000 tables and all that stuff. Okay, now you have your application layer. When I say application layer, earlier you used to create the master data using here mm01 or mm02 xk01. Okay, and this data comes over here after save, and the data gets stored into your the backend tables. Now with MDG, okay, what happens is in MDG also, when you activate all the business functions, your MDG will create something called staging tables. This we call it as a staging tables. Now, what is the significance or purpose of this particular staging table? Okay, so user logged in into MDG system and he wants to create a material. He entered all the data and click the save and submit button, save or submit button. So initially the data gets stored into these staging tables. The data gets stored into this staging table. It doesn't move into the database layer immediately. The data gets stored into these staging tables. These staging tables are exclusively for MDG purpose. Okay, so now here you have a requester where requester created the data. Okay, and then once he submit that, let's say example, it goes to approver. When approver opens that application, okay, UI to see the data, system will read the data from the staging table and it will show up to the approver, and approver will approve that request, assume that. Then let's say it goes to the next level, approver 2. For him also it will get the data from your backend staging table and it will show up. And finally, once the final approver approves the data, okay, so that is the time what happens is, let's say initially the material number 100 is there, initially it's stored over here. Okay, now once the final approver approves that request, then that is the time what happens is this particular 100 record will come and sit into your actual master data table, and this record will be deleted from your staging table. That's how here we are separating out. So this we call staging tables are inactive data. Okay, and these tables we call it as a active tables or active data. Active. Okay, that active means the data that is there in the DB layer here, this data can be used for your transactional purpose. Inactive means you are not supposed to use this data for your transactional purpose. System doesn't look at this data for your transactional. So that means this record is being changed. This material is under process or under changes. So at that time, we are not supposed to touch this material. So that's why SAP has a clear separation indicator. That is, this is separate DB layers and separate database tables as well. These are a working record. And once your working record is finalized, then only move the data to your underlying the DB layer. Okay, so why SAP introduced this staging layer concept? Because to support all these workflows and everything, right? If let's say for example, if I store the data directly at the requester level into this table, then approver also, for approver and everyone, it opens the data from your application table only. And if someone wants to reject the data, you cannot delete the record from here. So that's why this is your staging temporary persistence area, where the data gets stored over here. After all the approvals towards end of the workflow, the data, if it is a go means if it is an approved by the final approver, then only the data will move to, I will consider this as my golden record or the accurate record, and then I will push it to my underlying DB layer. I means the MDG framework will push it to the MDG, the actual DB layer. If someone at any stages of this workflow, if someone thinks that, okay, this material is no more required, or this customer is no more required, okay, this is a duplicate record, depends on the rules that you set up in the backend, then what happens? This record will be rejected. This record will be rejected from this workflow process, and this record will be deleted from here. If someone rejects that, fully rejects this request, the data that is there, the record that is there in your staging area will get deleted, and nothing will move to your actual layer. So there will be maybe 100 requests are getting created in a day. Out of 100, maybe only 90 will be approved and moved to your layer. And the remaining 10 are the duplicate records or the faulty records, where the business don't want to move the data to your actual layer. So then those 10 records will get removed from your MDG process, from your staging area as well. So that's how SAP able to achieve using this clear separation of two separate database layers. Okay, so you will have one layer, staging layer for working record, and only the finalized changes will be moved to actual table. Is there a way to
view the staging table data in the
staging table data? Yeah, we use it, but for what purpose? Like, can you give some example?
To view, she is asking to view the
view
data.
the data view.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
we can view the
okay,
data.
okay. Yeah, we can view that one. I will show you that. We will go through that one. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah. So as I said, for material master, BP, and all these things, these staging tables are auto created as and when the business functions, respective business functions are activated. For custom objects like employee master, base element, or for plant master, these staging tables won't be available. We need to create these kind of staging tables. How to create and all that stuff, we will do that as part of our course. But this concept is very clear, should be clear to all. Okay, so what is a staging area? What is an active area? Okay, and when someone create initially the data, where it gets stored and all that stuff. Okay, so I'll give you one simple example so that you can correlate quickly. Okay, so just give me a minute. Okay, so I'll create one material. So I'll just click on this create material link. Okay, so just observe this one. We will discuss in detail what I'm doing now, but I just wanted to create one material over here. So I'll enter some demo material. This is similar to your MM01 transaction only, this UI. So I'm entering some basic data here. Material group, material type FERT, industry sec, let's say this one, material. Okay, so I entered some, I'm trying to create one material. So I'll just submit this request. So now, okay, so this request is submitted. Now let me show you that the staging for this one. So there is a report. Go to SC38. Okay, so the name of that program is USMD underscore data underscore model. Okay, so let me run this program. There is a direct T code is also there, but usually I go by with this particular program name. And so this staging area for each object will be represented with something called data model. We'll discuss, this is our first topic, data model. We'll discuss in detail about this data model. But for every object, for material master, the name of the data model is MM. For business partner, the name of the data model is BP. For finance, it's OG. Okay, so I'll just give my staging area name MM, the data model. So when you execute here, you can see bunch of staging. All these are physical names that you see. All these are the different staging tables, like how you have in material multiple tables, right? MARA, MRC, MVKE, MBW, MLAN, like how you have multiple tables. So here also you will have multiple staging tables in MDG layer. So these are the generated tables, not created by any person or any developer. So these tables automatically gets generated. Okay, so in this one, let me first open that. Corresponding to MARA, you will have one staging table over here. So this is the staging table. How do I identify the staging table for MARA and all that stuff? We will discuss in detail. But this is just, if you double click there, it will take you to SC11 only with this name. Okay, here you will have your material number and then your authorization group, unit of measure. So everything you will have here, all your MTRT, material type, everything you will be having over here. So if I look at the data inside this, so first time I'm opening, right? So everything is getting compiled. So now let's execute. Let's see how many records are there. See, so this is the material number. You see our UI. In the UI, the material number is $152. Now the same data got stored into your staging table $152, and there is an indicator here 0. This 0 indicates this is an inactive record. Okay, so this inactive record will turn into active and move into your actual application table after the final approval. After final approval means someone has to approve this request. Okay, we haven't built the workflow scenario for this one. So what I will do is I can just approve it from the backend. We will discuss this later. For now, just to show you the end-to-end so that you can visualize it. Okay, so let me approve this request from the backend.
First 2250, right?
Okay, so let me take the change request number 613. So I'm approving it or activating it from the backend. So now you can see here, this particular request got approved, activated. let me do a refresh. Here the status will be changed to final check approved, and this is the material that got created in the system. The $152, whatever that we will discuss why the dollar is there after final approval, why this actual number is there, so that we will discuss. Okay, but this is the material number that got created in your table. So which means ideally, as per our theory, this $152 from my staging table should go away. It should go away, right? So when I do a refresh, there is no record. And if I go to my table, I can see this particular. Okay, so what is the material number? 2273. 2273. Okay, you can see this is the material it got created now with this user. Okay, so now let me summarize what we have done. Okay, so this is my MDG. This is the staging table. This is the UI application. So user logged in, and then so once he submit the request, the data got stored over here with $152, and after final approval, the data got moved from this one. This 152 got deleted, and the same data moved over here. Here it generated the actual 2273, whatever the material number. Okay, now this is the material it got created. Now later I wanted to do some changes to this particular material. What happens when you go to your search application? So what is just let me show you the search application. Go to search material. Okay, so I'll enter my material number 2273. So 2273, right? Yeah, 2273. Okay, so I can also search that material over here. Enter your material number, click on search, you will get to see. Okay, from here I can open this material again from MDG UI only.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
Okay, so I can further click on edit. This is equivalent to your MM02 transaction. Okay, and you can again do some changes. Let's say I entered some old material number ABC and just submit this request. Now you will see this 2273 with this material. There is an entry into your staging table. Okay, so there is a 2273 record. There will be two records. I'll tell you what is this significance, but this is what the inactive record with 0 indicator. Always look at this one. Okay, with the value that we maintained ABC. So that means what happened in my Mara, that record is still there. Okay, so this is my active record in my Mara, and this is the inactive record with the changes I have done in MDG layer. Okay, so that means what happens here is when you wanted to do further changes, the same record again will pulled into your staging table. Now the staging table will contain the delta changes that you are doing at this point of time, whereas your active area contains the old record only. The reason why you have to separate layers, because these changes may or may not get approved. If after all the approvers, if the changes of the approver, final approver approves that request, those changes that you made using MDG UI, that old material number ABC, those changes will get posted successfully back to your table. But assume that in case these changes are not required, the approver will reject that request. That means that record will get deleted from your staging table. Your active area table with the old values, that is remain untouched. So this end-to-end process, you should have a basic understanding when it comes to MDG. The same concept applicable for MM, BP, finance, article master, EM objects, even for your custom object as well. So that's why we talked in the features consistency. Consistency means the framework, the behavior remains same across all the objects. The only difference is here we are talking about material, there it will be business partner. That's it. Okay. So now for this is a last topic, architecture overview. Okay, so as part of this is the complete MDG architecture one. Okay, that means you can see this central one is your MDG box. The right hand side you see the target systems where you wanted to replicate the data. On the left hand side you see some of the optional integrations. Okay, so our focus will be on this particular central box. Okay, in the central box, again, you can see once you in the backend, you have your application layer and your ABAP layer. Both are there, which, as I mentioned, the prerequisite is you should have an SAP NetWeaver, right? On top of that one, you can activate your MDG functionality. So this ERP layer and your ABAP stack should be there. On top of that one, once you activate your MDG business functions, you will get to see all these features. Now in these features, whatever the boxes that you see, each box is a topic for us. Okay, so these boxes, these 4 boxes that you see here, this represents your staging area. As I said, I showed you the staging tables for material master. Similarly, you'll have the staging tables for BP, customer, vendor, and finance objects as well. And there is a framework for custom objects where you can create your own employee master and everything. Okay, so this is the base. This should be there as a backend for your MDG. So this staging table should be there. So this is the base. So that's why always our first topic in session is the data model. So this entire staging area, we have a topic called data model topic. So there we will be discussing in detail about this data model. Okay, so this 4 boxes talks about the data model topic or staging area it represents. Okay, and on the top you see this is the UI interface, that UI applications are, I showed you the home pages. Work centers are nothing but, if I log into the system, right? If I go to the home page, I have some work centers where I can, if something is pending with my approval or whatever the request that I created, what is the status, that whatever you day in day out, whatever that you need to work on, the business users, they can actually access these links to see the status. Okay, so there are dedicated work centers are available as well over here. So that's what this diagram talks about, work centers, and the rows depends on the rows, those links will be enabled. And you have UI applications to create the master data, to display the master data, to perform such applications, to load, to perform file upload, file download, and all that activities. Okay, so there are workflows also there in MDG where you can have sequential workflows, parallel workflows, 1 step, 2 step. Okay, so likewise you have these workflows as well in MDG. Okay, staging is nothing but these boxes only. And these are the ones that I'm talking about, that the data quality rules, where we will be talking, you can set up the business rules. It can be either checks, validations, or derivations. Okay, so that we will be talking under the validation topic. And after that you have something called change request concept in MDG, and such applications, and data replication, and some analytical reports are there. So we'll talk about each of these applications. These are provided by SAP as an out-of-box applications where you can perform some activities. Okay, so all these, whatever you see, these small boxes are topics for us. Okay, so we will start with this data model topic tomorrow. Okay, and to access your MDG applications, there are 2 ways. One is using the NetWeaver client, NWBC. So how I'm going into this particular applications, right? So usually I access through NWBC. The T code is NWBC. So once you enter this NWBC, it will open up this particular browser. Here you can directly navigate to NWBC. So where you will have in the top the tabs, different tabs for BP, for customer governance. Okay, when you scroll right, you'll have for finance, for contract account governance. Okay, so likewise you will have depends on the roles, you will get to see all these different UIs and tabs. Okay, so to access, how you are accessing all the MDG applications using NWBC portals, this is one way. The other one is the Fury applications also there, out of box Fury applications. Using that also you can access your MDG or master data. Okay, on the right hand side you see the target systems. It can be your SAP or SAP systems where you wanted to replicate the data. On the left hand side you see some of that, like Fury is one of the optional integration, and you can have, these are the source systems where you get the data from the source system to MDG. Okay, so this on the left hand side it talks about your source systems. Okay, so this is at very high level the architecture of MDG, and from onwards our entire course covers this complete box as well as the integration with source and target systems.